There's no such thing as freedom in this country for a black man. There's no such thing as justice in this country for a black man. And there's no such thing as equality in this country for a black man. This is a white man's country.
Deathbed letter from former cop claims NYPD, FBI helped kill Malcolm X. A cousin of Ray Wood, a former undercover police officer, shared a confession letter in which Wood said that the agencies facilitated the assassination. A letter shared by the family of the deceased former New York police officer alleges that the officer, the New York City Police Department, and the FBI played a role in the murder of the powerful civil rights leader Malcolm X. The outspoken anti-racism activist and former spokesperson for the Nation of Islam died on February 21, 1965, after being shot while delivering remarks at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City. Ray Wood, a former undercover police officer, wrote in a newly released confession letter that the NYPD and FBI worked with him to make sure that the two men in charge of Malcolm X's security detail were arrested in the days before the speech. Ray Wood first shared the confession with family when he was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 2011. At the time, he asked his cousin Reggie not to share the letter until he died. Ray Wood died in November, and Reggie Wood shared his cousin's confession publicly on Saturday, flanked by a group that included Malcolm X's daughter, Kabila Shabazz, Iyasa Shabazz, and Camila Shabazz, and civil rights attorneys Benjamin Crump, Ray Hamlin, and Paul Napoli. For 10 years, I have carried this confession secretly in fear of what could happen to my family and myself if the government found out what I knew, end quote, Reggie Wood said Saturday. Ray Wood confessed that he, the NYPD, and the U.S. government all made sure Malcolm X wasn't adequately protected from assassination during his final speech. Quote, I participated in actions that in hindsight were deplorable and detrimental to the advancement of my own black people, end quote, Wood said. According to his letter in 1965, Wood's NYPD supervisors instructed him to devise a plot to bomb the Statue of Liberty along with two members of Malcolm X's security detail, Khalil Sayed and Walter Bow, in order to ensure the two security guards were arrested and separated from Malcolm X during his February 21 speech. Quote, it was my assignment to draw the two men into a felonious federal crime so that they could be arrested by the FBI and kept away from managing Malcolm X's Audubon Ballroom door security, he admitted. Sayed and Bow were arrested on February 16th in connection with the plot, although Bow testified at the time that it was Wood who devised it. Wood's letter, released more than half a century later, corroborates Bow's claim. Wood also confessed to helping frame a man named Thomas Johnson, who most recently known as Khalil Islam, for Malcolm X's murder. While serving a life sentence for the murder, Islam maintained his innocence until he died in 2009. Quote, on February 21st, 1965, I was ordered to be at the Audubon Ballroom, where I was identified by witnesses while leaving the scene, end quote. Wood said in his letter, quote, Thomas Johnson was later arrested and wrongfully convicted to protect my cover and the secrets of the FBI and the NYPD, end quote. Reggie Wood said his cousin withheld his role in Malcolm X's assassination all these years because he, quote, worried about what the NYPD and the FBI would do to him and his family if he had told the dark secrets he had held that helped destroy black leaders and black power organizations, end quote. Ray Wood said law enforcement officials threatened him with, quote, pending alcohol trafficking charges if I did not follow, end quote, their instructions to help thwart civil rights groups. His confession also shared details of the NYPD's efforts to frame a group of Black Panthers known as the Panther 21, who were acquitted after being wrongly accused of plotting terrorist attacks in New York in 1969. Ray Hamlin, an attorney representing Malcolm X's family, said they are owed recompense if the government played any role in his murder. Quote, if this heinous act was with the help and support of law enforcement and our government, then certainly I think the Shabazz family is deserving of some sort of retribution by way of compensation, end quote, Hamlin said Saturday. Iyasa Shabazz said quote, any evidence that provides greater insight, end quote, into her father's murder should be, quote, thoroughly investigated, end quote. Attorney Benjamin Crump drew a direct connection between the attempts by law enforcement to infiltrate and stifle activist movements in the 1960s and the more recent efforts by law enforcement groups to stifle activist movements like Black Lives Matter. In the past year, for example, the Justice Department under former President Donald Trump deployed the surveillance tools to spy on protest leaders during the height of the last summer's anti-racism protests. Even though this is an astonishing revelation from the past, Crump said of Ray Wood's confession, quote, I'll remind you, the past is prologue. Malcolm X is Black Lives Matter, end quote. Crump called on the Manhattan District Attorney and members of Congress, in particular the Congressional Black Caucus, to investigate Ray Wood's confession and the government's potential role in Malcolm X's murder. And that's by Jahan Jones, a reporter for Huffington Post, and that was posted on 22nd of February 2021.
This is about restorative justice to try to have those black leaders, those civil rights activists who were wrongfully convicted over 50 years ago, to have them exonerated.
After Ray's passing, I found a confession letter that Ray had written and mailed to my father back in 2011. This letter details the FBI, and the NYPD's involvement in the assassination of Malcolm X, and how he was forced to betray his people. This letter helps me to understand the pain and guilt that Ray felt for the last 55 years. He conspired to help the NYPD assassinate Malcolm X. On behalf of Ray, he wanted the world to know that he is deeply sorry. I hope that this information helps the Shabazz family, to more clearly understand what happened to their father on that horrible day. As a black man, I am disgusted to know that what happened 60 years ago is still going on today. We are living under J. Edgar Hoover's Jim Crow system of policing our black and brown people. He is the architect of these constant injustices and tactics against our people. I am now going to give a copy of this letter to the Shabazz family. I intend to give a copy of this letter to Khalil Saeed's family, Walter Bowe's family, Thomas Johnson's family, Herb Collander's family, and Afeni Shakur's family. These are the families of individuals that I am aware of who have been falsely convicted due to Ray's actions.
Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is responsible for the injustices. The government can bring these injustices to halt.
When you're in your own nation, in your own land, you're in a position to get justice. But when you're in another man's country, in another man's land, under another man's flag, and under another man's government, and under another man's court system, you have to look to that other man for justice, and you'll never get it.